These are 15 Nintendo Switch games that truly stand out. Whether it's incredible gameplay, unforgettable worlds, or countless hours of content, each one delivers an experience that's easy to recommend. Let's get started. Metroid Dread is a side-scrolling action game where you play as Samus, a bounty hunter who lands on a planet called ZDR to investigate a signal. The problem is that 7 robots called Emmys have gone rogue on that planet, and they're hunting you. When you're in their patrol zones, the game shifts completely. You're not fighting, you're avoiding, hiding, and looking for a window to escape. Outside of those sections, the game is classic Metroidvania. You explore a massive, interconnected map, unlock new movement and combat abilities, and use them to access areas that were previously blocked off. The combat is fast and tight, and the skill ceiling is real. Countering at the right moment, chaining movement options together, reading enemy patterns. The story closes out a plotline that started back on the NES, and it does it in a way that actually feels earned. Astral Chain is a third-person action game from Platinum Games set in a futuristic city that's being invaded by creatures called Chimera. You play as a police officer who can bind and control one of these creatures called a Legion using a chain. The combat has you and your Legion acting at the same time, which takes some getting used to, but becomes genuinely satisfying once it clicks. You can use the chain itself as a weapon, set traps, coordinate attacks, and switch between different Legion types that each play differently. Between the action sections, the game slows down for investigation sequences where you're scanning environments, interviewing witnesses, and piecing together what happened at a crime scene. It keeps the pacing varied. The story explores what it costs to protect people in a world that's running out of options, and it goes to some interesting places in the later chapters. Octopath Traveler II is a turn-based JRPG with 8 separate protagonists, each with their own story running parallel across the same world. You pick one to start with, then recruit the others as you go. The combat runs on a break system. Every enemy has a set of weaknesses, and hitting them enough times breaks their guard and leaves them wide open for boosted attacks. Each character also has 2 field actions they can use in towns, things like challenging NPCs to fights, stealing from them, persuading them, or paying them for information. These open up side content and optional items that you'd miss just following the main paths. The stories range from a merchant trying to rebuild his life after being betrayed, to a dancer navigating political power in a corrupt kingdom. They're all different in tone, and they're all well written.
My spear shall strike through!
Now it begins.
Mario Kart 8 Deluxe is a kart racer with 96 tracks, 48 characters, and a level of polish that most games don't come close to. The racing is built around drifting to build up boost, managing your item slots, and knowing the tracks well enough to hit shortcuts consistently. The track roster covers the entire history of the series' original courses, alongside remakes of tracks from every previous Mario Kart, and the Booster Course Pass brought in even more. Battle Mode has several different formats and works well with a group. The online play is stable and well-matched. It's the kind of game where the skill floor is low enough that anyone can jump in, but there's real depth if you want to get competitive with it. It launched alongside the Switch in 2017, and it's still one of the top-selling games on the platform. Paper Mario: The Thousand-Year Door is an RPG originally released on GameCube in 2004, remade for Switch in 2024. Everything in the game exists as paper characters, environments, set pieces, and the game uses that consistently, both visually and mechanically. Mario can fold into a paper airplane, slip through narrow gaps, or roll up like a scroll to navigate the world. Combat happens on a stage in front of an audience, and you perform action commands during attacks and defenses to get better results. The story starts with Mario searching for crystal stars in a port town, but it expands into something with a lot more going on underneath: secret organizations, a sealed evil, and a much bigger picture than the setup suggests. The writing is genuinely funny throughout, and the supporting cast of party members each brings something different mechanically and personality-wise. Dragon Quest XI's is a traditional JRPG that runs about 80 to 100 hours and earns most of that runtime. You play as the Luminary, Someone who discovers they're the reincarnation of a legendary hero, a fact that makes them immediately wanted by the kingdom's forces. The combat is turn-based and straightforward to learn, with a party of characters who each have distinct roles, and skill trees you develop over time. The world is large, the towns are detailed, and there's a lot of optional content that fleshes out the main cast in ways the central story doesn't always have room for. The S version on Switch includes a full 2D mode that lets you play the entire game with 16-bit graphics, new story chapters for every party member, orchestrated music, and the ability to switch between modes at any save point. The tone balances lighthearted humor with a story that gets genuinely heavy in places. Super Mario Galaxy plus Super Mario Galaxy 2 brings together two of the greatest 3D platformers ever made in one collection. Across both adventures, Mario travels through colorful galaxies where every planet has its own gravity, turning every level into a creative playground filled with clever platforming, puzzles, and memorable boss fights. The first game follows Mario as he teams up with Rosalina and the Lumas to rescue Princess Peach, while the sequel expands the formula with Yoshi, new power-ups like Cloud Mario and Rock Mario, and even more inventive level designs. You'll launch between planets, collect power stars, gather star bits, and discover new galaxies packed with surprises. The Switch version also adds improved visuals, updated controls, quality of life features, and support for modern controllers, making this the perfect way for both newcomers and longtime fans to experience two timeless Nintendo adventures. Super Mario Bros. Wonder is a 2D platformer and the first new traditional Mario in that style in about a decade. The main hook is the Wonder Flower, a collectible hidden in each level that triggers a major change to that level when you grab it. Sometimes the layout shifts, sometimes the perspective changes, sometimes Mario transforms into something different entirely. Every Wonder effect is unique to its level, so you genuinely don't know what you're getting until it happens. The base platforming is clean and responsive, and there's a badge system that lets you equip one modifier before a level, things like extending your jump or changing how wall jumps work, which adds some customization to how you approach stages. There are multiple playable characters with slightly different properties, and 4-player co-op works well for the whole game. Kirby in the Forgotten Land is the first mainline Kirby game built for full 3D, and it works well. The setting is a world that looks like a modern civilization that was abandoned at some point. Malls, highways, amusement parks, all overgrown. Kirby's copyability system is here, as usual, and hail enemies to take on their powers, each with different uses in combat and exploration. The new addition is Mouthful Mode, where Kirby stretches himself over large objects, like cars or vending machines, and uses them as tools to move through levels or deal with enemies. It's a mechanic that fits naturally into the game's strange setting. Each level has a set of secret missions that give you reasons to look carefully at everything, instead of just pushing forward. Abilities can be upgraded using in-game currency, adding some depth to the progression. Fire Emblem Three Houses is a tactical RPG where you play as a professor at a military academy split into 3 houses, representing 3 different nations. You choose one house at the start and spend the first half of the game teaching those students, building relationships with them, and running missions. The second half is a war, and the house you chose determines which side you're on and how events unfold. The tactical combat is grid-based, with real stakes. Units can be killed permanently, and knowing when to push and when to pull back matters. Outside of battles, you manage your schedule at the monastery, what class you teach, who you spend time with, what skills you develop in your students. Support conversations between characters build out everyone's backstory and personality in ways that make the later story hit harder. There are 4 different routes through the game, each with a different perspective on the same conflict. Metroid Prime Remastered is a first-person exploration game, originally released in 2002, rebuilt for Switch. You play as Samus on a planet called Talon 4, tracking space pirates and uncovering something much older buried in the planet's history. The structure is the same as any Metroid game you explore. Interconnected environments, acquire upgrades, and use them to reach previously inaccessible areas. But from a first-person perspective that changes how the world feels to navigate. The visor system lets you switch between different scanning and detection modes, each revealing different information about the environment and enemies. A lot of the planet's history is communicated through optional scan data, so how much you learn is up to you. The remaster runs at 60 frames per second, with completely replaced visuals, new textures, models, and lighting, while keeping the original structure intact. The Legend of Zelda: Tears of the Kingdom. A substance called gloom is spreading from beneath Hyrule, and ancient ruins have appeared floating in the sky above it. Link starts the game with a new arm that gives him 4 abilities. Ultra Hand lets him pick up and connect objects together to build structures, vehicles, and tools. Fuse attaches items to weapons to change how they work. Ascend lets him phase upward through ceilings. And Recall reverses an object's movement through time. Most of what the game asks you to do can be approached in multiple ways because of how these abilities interact with the environment and with each other. The world now has 3 layers: underground, surface, and sky, each with their own points of interest. The shrines are more mechanically involved than in the previous game, and the main dungeons are larger and more structured. Xenoblade Chronicles 3 is a JRPG set on a world called Ionios, where 2 nations are locked in permanent war, and soldiers are born knowing they'll live for exactly 10 years before a ceremony called Homecoming takes them. The story follows Noah and Mio, soldiers from opposite sides whose paths cross under circumstances that make them question everything about the world they were raised in. The combat is real-time but strategic. You position your party, manage cooldowns on special moves called arts, assign class roles, and chain together attacks for better results. A mechanic called Ouroboros lets paired characters merge into a powerful, combined form during combat. The party grows to 6 main characters, plus additional fighters called heroes, each with their own class and arc. Between story chapters, there are extensive colony quests that develop the world's various military factions and the people in them. Breath of the Wild launched with the Switch in 2017. You play as Link, who wakes up after a 100-year sleep with no memory, handed a worn-down world and told that Calamity Ganon is still out there. The game gives you very little direction. You can see things in the distance and go to them. The physics simulation covers most of what you'd expect. Fire spreads, wind affects objects, materials behave consistently, and that consistency is what makes the open world feel real to interact with. Climbing lets you go almost anywhere, which means the map is navigable in basically any direction from the start. Weapons break, which keeps you rotating through what you pick up, and stops any single loadout from becoming permanent. There are 120 shrines across the world, each a small, self-contained puzzle. The 4 divine beasts are larger dungeons with rotating mechanics. Super Mario Odyssey is a 3D platformer where Mario travels across a series of large kingdoms collecting power moons. His companion is a hat named Cappy, who can be thrown at enemies, objects, and certain creatures to take control of them. Possess a bullet bill and fly through the air. Possess a Cheep Cheep and swim faster underwater. Possess a T-Rex and stomp through environments that weren't designed with a T-Rex in mind. Each kingdom has a different theme and a different set of captures built around it. The movement system is deep. There are a lot of techniques that emerge from how jumping, throwing Cappy, and momentum interact, and mastering them makes getting around feel genuinely satisfying. The power moon count is high, with some tied to the story, many hidden in the environment, and more unlocking in each kingdom after the main objectives are done. That's the list. Every one of these games is worth playing, and each offers something memorable, whether it's the gameplay, the story, or the world you'll spend hours exploring. If there's one on this list you haven't played yet, let us know which one in the comments. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.